Good morning, everyone. I'm Erin Turbot, the communications lead for the Department of Workforce Services, and I'm thrilled to welcome you today to today's virtual training series, AI for Everyday Life, Simple Tools to Boost Productivity and Creativity. This series was created based on your feedback, and we're excited to bring you topics that matter most to you. Be sure to check out our website at dws.wyo.gov/VTS. We'll drop the link in the chat right now for upcoming sessions, registration, and recordings of past events. Today's session is being recorded, and all materials will be available on our site within a few days. If you have questions during the presentation, just pop them in the chat and our presenter will answer them at the end of the hour. Now let's dive in. Please join me in welcoming today's speaker, Joe Mazzio. Joe has over 40 years of business experience in computing, telecommunications, and financial systems. He has taught more than 5,000 professionals on various topics in computer science and introduced thousands to AI in the past year. He is the author of articles on AI and cybersecurity, a frequent speaker at AI forums and conferences, and the author of the AI Fast Info newsletter. Joe, welcome.
Thank you very much, Erin. I appreciate it. So let's get started today. AI for everyday life. AI is there. It's everywhere. You hear it talked about on every kind of news, and we're going to go through it today with an agenda. We're going to try to talk first about why all the interest in AI, Google and YouTube lessons that we've learned over the years that we can translate into AI, the basic toolkit, and 9 real-world use cases. We're going to take you through a series of examples that are very simple and very easy to use, and then tell you how to master AI in about 10 days. With that as a start, let's hit the next slide. Okay, why all the interest? You'll notice there's a difference between, there's a space between 1, 2, and 3, and 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. The reason for that space is the first 3 are negative and the last 5 are positive. First, AI will doom humanity. When I first started talking about AI, first my granddaughter, my 12-year-old granddaughter, and my 82-year-old dissertation mentor both told me at the same time that AI is the end of humanity. They're both today avid users of AI. In fact, they each use it more than 10 times a day. So I guess the doom of humanity they're embracing, and so are most people nowadays. AI will also eliminate most jobs. People who talk about this really aren't checking out the current information on this, which looks like AI is actually expanding jobs, not decreasing jobs. It is decreasing some jobs, like customer service jobs in call centers and the like, but it is creating a lot more data center jobs and other jobs, which is likely to give us a massive amount of new jobs. But on balance, we would expect that if there is elimination of jobs, that will happen over the next 6 to 7 years, and it will happen slowly and to targeted segments of the society. So you can train yourself to be away from those segments. Lastly, the negatives. AI hallucinates. AI does hallucinate. It used to hallucinate back in 2023 at a rate of about 1 out of every 5 prompts that you issued and responses that you got contained a hallucination. Hallucination means a lie or something that's incorrect in the data. Okay? Right now, that hallucination rate is down to about 5%. So about 1 in every 20 prompts right now is giving you something that's incorrect. You'll have to understand that as you use it, and understand that what you produce with AI is very important, and it can't be just taken and published under your name. You have to think about what it is telling you, and you have to verify what you're learning from it. Now let's talk about some of the positives. AI will become your new assistant. That is probably the most important thing that you're going to learn, is that AI quickly is going to become an assistant. Many people throughout the world today are communicating with AI, not with text and typing through their phones, their iPads, and their computers, but also with their voice. And AI is now responding in a speech-to-speech fashion. So actually, it is always there, always around you, and you can talk to it and get full responses from AI. So it will quickly become your new assistant as you use it more and more. AI will extend your life. That's not a joke. Google had a project in AI called DeepMind. It is pretty fabulous. Using this DeepMind version of AI, they have created about 400,000 new antibiotics, new materials, new proteins, new ligands, all for the creation, all created and never before seen in our real world. So where we've used about 400 antibiotics in medicine over the years, we now have access to almost 40,000 new kinds of antibiotics, some of which are already in drug trials and are curing funguses and viruses and things that we've never addressed before with antibiotics. This new world sets up a world where material science-wise, you're likely to see, if we work today with maybe 50 different kinds of materials in construction, tomorrow we'll find ourselves working with numbers like 5,000 different kinds of materials suited better to the purpose to which it's intended and tailored to the climate in which we live and the environment in which we face. AI is there and it's going to extend your life. AI will deepen your topic knowledge. You'll find very quickly, particularly if you use things like Perplexity, that you are asking a second question all the time. So you ask a question of Perplexity, it gives you an answer, gives you a nice summarized answer, 150 to 200 words, and then it turns around to you and it says, here's 5 questions you might like to ask about, as a follow-up on your initial question. That type of topic knowledge is fabulous because it drives us to ask a second question all the time. The more we ask a question, the deeper our learning. It will also accelerate your learning speed because you'll feel much more comfortable once you're using AI. You'll feel much more comfortable asking questions about what you don't know to get quick answers on what you don't know and get you at a deeper level. So you're learning deeper and faster. About 500 million people in the world used AI last week. That's about 1 in 16. At the end of this session, you'll be one of those about 500 or something plus 200 million, plus 200. But let's remember that AI is a wonderful capability. It's being adopted around the world massively. And part of the reason for that is in that little text box at the bottom of the slide, which recently released research shows that, and this is published in the Harvard Business Review, that when we did research on 776 Procter & Gamble employees working with Wharton and Harvard, they found that an individual using AI is 32% more productive in quality and in quantity than a team of 2 without AI. That's pretty amazing. So with that productivity as a backdrop, let's get started. In 2024, 92% of US adults use Google and YouTube. The wonderful thing about Google is it has a thing called a search bar on the bottom where we put our queries all the time. That search bar is the same as the search bar you're going to find in most of the AIs. So it's very simple and very straightforward. It's slightly enhanced in the AIs, but you will see it's something common, familiar, and usable. The other thing I want to point out to you is about 90% of us used YouTube in the past year. We used it to learn things. And the way we did it was we put in a topic into YouTube and we found ourselves getting access to videos. Of course, if we put in a topic and we ask what's cell division or mitosis, we might find that we want to learn at a 30-second clip, or we might want to have a 3-minute clip, or we might want to have an hour and 4-minute clip about cell division. Okay, if I really wanted to learn cell division really well, I'd listen to the video that's an hour and 4 minutes and I'd learn it in depth. But if I just want to understand what the word mitosis means, I might use the 3-minute video. That learning level choice is something you're going to find you're doing all the time inside AI. So let's get started with actual work. Your basic toolkit today, which the materials we sent around earlier asked you to get started with, is just get an account on Perplexity, ChatGPT, and Claude. These are 3 of the basics that I use every day and many people use every day. And we find different purposes for the different tools, but they're all easy to use and we interface to them through a simple search bar. So use case 1. So the way we set this up is first we tell you what to open, which is ChatGPT. So if you have a tab for ChatGPT, that's what you do. And then we're going to ask you to type in, draw a picture of Devil's Tower in a photorealistic style. Draw a picture of Devil's Tower in a photorealistic style. This should take about a minute to generate. Come on, AI.
Joe, I did these 2 prompts previously if we want to just show the results, because it might
That'd be
take a minute.
great.
Okay.
That'd be great.
Okay.
Okay, that's what Devil's Tower looks like in a photorealistic drawing from ChatGPT. Okay, the second prompt we're going to ask you to do is, can you add a herd of bison to the foreground? And that's what it should look like. That's what you got to check for, is whether or not they're really cows or bison. That is a hallucination. But that's part of what AI is all about. Now I'm going to take you to something a little bit different. You see that they can do this. Now, I've asked ChatGPT to make a movie of um, a cowboy on a horse going into a bar in Manhattan. Watch closely. See the bar stool under the horse? I have this on a loop. But from a 10-word prompt, that's pretty good to be able to put out 6 seconds of video. There are lots of products that are out there. There's about 81 products now on the web that are available for producing videos. They range up to about 2 minutes in length. And you can produce videos pretty fast and pretty regularly. But a lot of them, just like that, the way that horse is turning around as it enters the bar, are hallucinations. So you're likely to see a lot of different things. This is getting better and better over time. That's good, Aaron. Let's go on to the next use case. Okay. Now, that 74% number is about the number of middle school and high school students in the United States who are now using AI. The question is, are they using AI for their homework? The answer is yes. So let's open Perplexity and put in, can you write an essay on the importance of the Gettysburg Address? Okay. You can see he gave me an essay on the importance of the Gettysburg Address in less than 30 seconds. This certainly cuts down homework time if my teacher told me to write that essay. But if you read that essay, you'll find that it speaks in a lot of large words. Nice at the bottom that it allows me to ask a second question about the Gettysburg Address. But for now, let me come back to that search bar on the bottom and ask, can you rewrite that to be more oriented towards a fifth grader? The interesting thing I just learned from that is that the Gettysburg Address only lasted 2 minutes. So But this is nice and it's much simpler and it's much easier. And if I'm a sixth grader, I could probably submit that with some changes. The answer to the question, will it create a bibliography, is yes. It will give you full notes. Okay. Next use case. So we know students are doing their homework. Now let's talk about some adults. Let's say we're planning a trip, okay? We're planning on going to Portugal in early November for 7 days, 3 in Lisbon and Porto, and 1 in the wine country. What are the top 10 places I should visit? How should I pack for the trip? What are the top 3 restaurants you would recommend in each place? New search. It's pretty great information. And we've obtained all this in very short order. Okay. Now, before we move on, though, I would like to know a little bit more about Portugal. So, can you please give me a 1,000-word brief history of Portugal? That's pretty great for about 10, 15 seconds worth of an AI working and giving me the background necessary for my trip to Portugal. Okay. Use case number 4, summarizing text. I usually ask people here we're going to open Claude first. And the first thing we want to do is click on the paperclip and upload a file. And Widget's going to ask it to summarize. Got to ask it to summarize, Aaron.
It's important to always be nice to our AI overlords.
I presume this is much easier, Aaron, than reading a Wyoming DWS, press release.
Yes, it definitely is.
I use this all the time. I get in my inbox on a regular basis about 20 to 25 PDF articles a day. A lot of people asking me to read things and comment on things, and I wind up almost always taking the PDF, putting it into Claude, asking Claude to please summarize for me, and I use that summary, and I'll ask it to summarize in 250 words or 300 words, and please summarize for me what's in it. That's the great thing. How do I guarantee that any file is not saved into the database? The answer to that question is in what the AI says about what they do. Claude, in this case, has a strong policy on the ethical use of information. So they claim, if you would, that they don't keep the PDFs for training or any other purposes, and they're used by a lot of people, and they haven't gotten beaten up that badly by the press about their training for their AIs. So my suggestion, if you're worried about that, I would be using Claude because Claude does have a fair use policy, and you can read it. Okay, next. Brainstorming ideas. Okay. I don't have a t-shirt business, but if I had a t-shirt business, I might ask Claude, can you tell me the top 10 things I can do to expand my t-shirt business throughout the state of Wyoming? Let's see what Claude comes up with.
God
I'm
dang it.
sorry, Perplexity comes up
Oh,
with.
good.
Did it give me 10 things, Aaron?
It sure did.
And questions at the end? Did it add to my knowledge base at the end?
Did. What are some
Sure.
effective marketing strategies specifically for the t-shirt businesses in Wyoming? How can I leverage social media to expand my t-shirt business in Wyoming? Are there any local trade shows in Wyoming where I can showcase my t-shirts? That's
These
a few
are
more.
kind of good questions, aren't they? And right on topic.
I especially like up at the top, this link right here for the Wyoming
Mhm.
Business Council, Market Expansion Grant from the Wyoming Business Council. So maybe if I was starting a t-shirt business, that'd be a good thing to look into.
Pretty cool. Now let's talk about doing something else. It's a little bit difficult for most of us. Let's open Perplexity and type in new thread. Yep. Can you translate "Hello world, my name is Jane, but my mom called me Bubbles" into Spanish, Arabic, and Chinese? See how long this takes. That's done. That's pretty cool, pretty fast. I've used this a couple of times to take articles I've written, translate them into another language, and to send them to friends in other locations who prefer reading in other languages. And I have used all three of these languages. I believe the last count I heard, there were 58 languages available to translate into. So, and that's not just Perplexity, that's Perplexity and ChatGPT and Claude, Grok and Gemini, the top 5. Okay. Research and learning. Now, I use this fifth grader technique all the time because a lot of times I don't understand anything about a certain field, and I want to understand something at a very low level so I really can understand it, okay? So I can learn it. So, for instance, Einstein's theory of relativity has never found its way into Joe Mazzio's mind. So when I wanted to learn about it, I asked it to teach me like I am a fifth grader. Open ChatGPT. Please explain Einstein's theory of relativity to me like I am a fifth grader. Just read the beginning of that. It's beautiful. Simplifies everything. Speaks to me at my level of deep knowledge about physics. And is absorbable. Page down and see how much he gave me. Oh, that's pretty good. Look at this. That's a great write-up. Let's get on to number 8, Aaron. Okay. Again, what is the reason to use ChatGPT in regards to learning new programs for basic understanding? I would guess that number one, it's quick and it's there when I want it. So if I'm on my phone or my iPad or my computer, I can pick it up and get information very, very quickly. Number two, I can tell it to teach me at the level at which I want to learn, which is terribly important. And perhaps most importantly, it allows me to iterate to a second question where I can learn in a deeper way about what I'm really interested in. That's kind of my answer. Use case number 8, creating structured outlines and plans. And this is practical. let's open Claude. Go to, there it is. And I am planning to install irrigation for a 30-foot by 20-foot vegetable garden. Can you give me an ordered work plan plus the list of tools and products I will need to buy? I have a hose connector about 10 feet from the garden. I actually used this plan and list of tools and products I needed to buy. I was actually putting in a vegetable garden, and I used the work plan and the list of tools and products as information before I called some contractors and asked somebody to do the real work for me. It was very informative, and it was pretty right on. I was able to determine who really knew what they were doing and had done the kind of work I wanted done beforehand. Okay, Aaron? Last but not least, analyzing data. Um, Analyzing data is something that happens to me in my work all the time. I'm often sent, people send me Excel spreadsheets or they'll send me database files. And um, this information is information that before I go about and start working on something, I tend to like to know what's in the data file. So this is the way I do it. Open Claude. Please explain the data. You got to capture the file too.
I'm grabbing it right now.
Okay.
I hope.
Please explain the data and its captions, provide a complete statistical analysis, point out data that are outliers and may be incorrect, and provide a summary of the top 5 points I should take away from the study. This data that Erin is going to post in now is from a file which is of all of the passenger manifest on the Titanic.
Sorry, guys.
This is what we call a live demo.
Yeah. Oddly, it's saying it's not where I put it, so just give me one more second. I'm real sorry.
You have it on my email.
Yeah.
There it is.
So,
There's a file in there.
it is supposed to be, but it is acting like it's not. I promise you, I practiced on this.
No problem. Erin, this is what happens with a live demo.
That's right.
Well, we can give our fellow participants today a copy of the real file and they can do it on their own.
Yeah, I think we're going to have to. I'm real sorry about that, guys.
No problem. Let's get down to some last minute thoughts. AI is as easy to use as Google and YouTube. It is simple to use. There are issues with it, but the thing you're going to understand, you'll find that it is, it's got, remember, it can hallucinate. You don't want to publish something in your name that is taken from AI without reading it, understanding it, and checking it for facts. Okay? It is terribly important that you do that because too many cases recently have come out where lawyers and accountants and all sorts of professionals have used AI, passed information on as if it's real, as if it's their work, and it turns out not to be. It's a nasty, nasty way to become involved with AI, is to start using it willy-nilly without understanding what you're printing. AI comes in 5 major forms today: Perplexity, ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, and Grok. Gemini is by Google. You've used it already if you've used Google at all, because that summary in the beginning of a Google search now, where you see that little summary that starts to look like a Perplexity summary, when you've used that summary, you've seen the little blue star that is the Gemini icon, and you will see a summary. So you've already used that. And Grok is by X. X has just been taken over by xAI, and I understand xAI is about to be taken over by Tesla. So Grok is another system. Grok has many of these systems have guardrails. I referred before to Claude's guardrails, where they keep on the side of Claude, they keep you from doing certain things because it's not considered appropriate practice, like taking articles that you don't have rights to and putting them into Claude or other things. Grok has very few guardrails. It has the fewest, in fact. So if you want to draw, you can draw almost anything with Grok. If you want to write, you can write almost anything with Grok. And if you want to explore issues and things about the world that aren't provided to you from ChatGPT and Claude and Google and Perplexity, you can do that with Grok. The best models are free. Isn't everything best that's free? And they're all free at first, and paid is better for frequent users. And I'll try to draw a distinction here. Let me give you an example. When I go on to Gemini and I ask it to do some research, if I ask it to do research on mitosis, it might give me a 1,000-word explanation of what mitosis is. Mitosis, by the way, is cell division. Okay, it's a basic concept in biology. If I put into Google and go into a paid version of Gemini, and there's a button there that's entitled Deep Research, So if I press deep research and allow it to work for about 2 minutes, it will give me about 5,000 words, 60 sources, and about 2,000 words on the method it used to do the research. Now, I don't have use for that kind of information very often because, like the word mitosis, I don't need 5,000 words to explain to me what cell division is. And I'm not a biologist. So, but if I wanted to find out in depth about something, Gemini Deep Research in the paid version is just fabulous. So I can use all of these in different ways. Perplexity I use as my everyday option to Google. I look at it as my option for search. So if I want a quick answer to a quick question, then I put it in Google. But if I want to learn a little bit about what the topic is, I put it in Perplexity because it gives me about 200 words and it gives me about five, questions at the end, which I find very valuable. One of the things in learning is learning to ask the second question. If I'm not interested in learning on a topic, but just understanding what a word means or what equation equals, I put it in Google. But if I want to learn a little bit, I put it in Perplexity. It's my first level of learning. If I want to learn more, I might use OpenAI or ChatGPT, or I'm sorry, I might use ChatGPT or Claude. Claude I use for, now I'm a computer scientist, so I use Claude for coding. I also use Claude for writing. It writes in a style that I like a lot. So when I have to write something or when I want to demonstrate something, a lot of times I'll write the first draft in Claude because it's good at writing. ChatGPT is more general purpose and I use it for a lot of things. Gemini, I've taken to using for a lot of deep research. Where I have topics that I want to learn in depth about, I go to Gemini. It's my first ever. That's how I distinguish between the AIs. Grok is there for topics and things that I don't get every day, that I don't have every day, guardrails on, that I want to learn something. For instance, if I wanted to learn about nuclear fission or nuclear fusion, I might want to learn it in Grok because it's going to give me just more information about the process of nuclear fission and nuclear fusion. And in terms of putting files into the AIs and using them, I would not put my files into AI if it had to do with my business and had to do with anything that I was interested in protecting in any way, shape, or form. If I'm working with, a lot of times I'm working with companies and I tell them to keep their files separate and distinct from these AIs and only use the internal AIs. Most of the internal AIs are set up in a playground environment so you can play with them and learn about them easily inside the company and use AI, but not use it in a public format. The public format is obviously going to be more expansive and perhaps give you better results. But if I'm concerned about security, I always stay within the guidelines of one of the AIs that's protected. Much of the time, that's Microsoft has Copilot, and that is pretty well protected too. The last piece I want to raise is if you use Perplexity, Claude, ChatGPT 3 times a day over the next 10 days, you will have a lifelong learning tool available to you. That's the hardest thing to get people to do, is actually use the products. Once I find that once I talk about Perplexity to people, I introduce it to them, I get them to put it down on their phone and their iPad and their computer, all of a sudden I have people calling me back and saying, "Oh, I use Perplexity all the time. It's a great way to learn." And I think that's the lesson that I get out of AI is I find it to be a massive increase in my personal knowledge and my learning speed. So that's why I use AI and use AI regularly. And I recommend it for everybody. Can we take some questions now?
Absolutely, we can. We have quite a few. First, and these go back to the beginning of the presentation. So first question, are we aware of what the generative AI programs have been trained on? And if so, do we know if the generative AI program was trained on legally acquired assets?
I'm going to answer this honestly as I can. Number one, nobody is aware of what 5 different AI programs are trained on. That's number one. Number two, we do know from a number of publishers that their content has been taken and used inside those training materials. So that's an honest answer as far as I can go.
Okay. In regards to our data points, is this fed back into the generative AI program or not?
It depends on what generative AI program you're using. And I would suggest if you're concerned about that, read the security policy and the ethical considerations policies of Anthropic, which is the author of Claude, and you will see that they have probably as restrictive as there is a set of guardrails around the use of AI. So Claude would become my go-to if I was really concerned about security.
Okay, thank you. What is the energy consumption per prompt for the generative AI programs? And does it work with our green energy programs?
This is definitely not green energy. This is energy use, much like generation of electricity is energy use. We have computer chips largely coming from a company called NVIDIA, which is an American company based in California. We have computer chips that are power hogs, and they're being used in the hundreds of thousands by certain of the generative AI platforms. That's going to cause a massive increase around the country in the building of data centers, and particularly associated with AI. And they're going to absorb an awful lot of the energy produced by America in order to build newer and better AIs.
Next then, with Amazon, Google, and Facebook lawsuits that are ongoing about the selling of personal data, how are we able to protect our business and ourselves from being impacted by their AI assistants?
The best way I can think of is to understand what the lay of the land is and what's protected and what's not protected. But both ChatGPT and Microsoft, OpenAI and Microsoft, sell enterprise versions of their generative AI platforms. And a lot of companies, perhaps the majority of the Fortune 500, have implemented those platforms. They give you basically the concept of a sandbox. So you stay within the company and you're using it within the company. JP Morgan Chase, for instance, has built a sandbox where people can play with stuff inside their sandbox. But when they want to play with, for instance, Grok, which is not inside their sandbox, or perhaps Gemini, which is not inside their sandbox, what they do is they offer a portal. That portal stops anybody from taking files and information that is being used inside the company and that's proprietary to the company from being used on the public products. That seems to be an approach that makes sense to me logically as a scientist.
Thank you. What is done to combat the misinformation and disinformation that is fed into generative AI programs when pulling from public resources in regards to answering questions via prompts?
I don't know what's being done right now. The status of most of that is lawsuits being issued by publishers, particularly publishers of movies, of magazines, of books, and trying to make sure that the AIs are not training on their products. Of course, I'm only talking about 5 American products here. I am not talking about the products like DeepSeek, which is a Chinese product, and others. I have no familiarity with what their policies are, in fact, as opposed to in verse. In verse, they all have policies that they say protect everybody and are guardrails, but I use the American version.
Okay, thank you. Next is, with OpenAI and ChatGPT having ongoing lawsuits about copyright, is it ethical to use this for artistic pursuits such as creative writing, drawing, and pictures?
Well, I don't know the answer to that question because that calls for me to put my ethics on the question. But I would say that none of us starts out wanting to copy from published works, especially not without attribution. I mean, we were trained as children that we footnote things and we put bibliographs on the end of our papers. We learned that in high school. That's part of just having an ethical construct. The problem here is that I can't tell what AI has trained on what products. So I leave it to the lawyers to figure out what it is. In some cases, this is people wanting to get paid for their content. In other cases, people just don't want that content used. And I would respect both of those.
Okay, good. Regarding having AI write a paper for you, isn't this plagiarism? Would you have to cite ChatGPT?
No. Okay. And this gets back to something else. I'll tell you, if I can, Aaron, I'll digress into a story. I wrote a novel in 6 hours, 178 pages. It's a story of a young Korean American orphan who tries to find his family in Busan, Korea, where he is from. I gave it about 50 words as a prompt and asked it to give me an outline. It gave me an outline. I then broke it into chapters. I asked that the chapters be about 13 to 15 pages long each. And then I had different AIs publish different chapters. And I came up with a novel. When I read through the novel, there were 2 or 3 chapters that were really horrible. And I had another AI rewrite them. And then I put it together and I had somebody read it and they said it was okay, not great as a novel. And so I've gone back and tried to work the novel. And at the end of it, is it my novel or is it ChatGPT's or Google's? I wouldn't know. I'm trying to get to a really good piece of literature, and it's not easy. But neither is writing a book.
Okay, that's actually very interesting. It kind of points to maybe it's not that it's not your work, because you're clearly doing the work. So
It is your work, but it's also the work of, and you would never want to have somebody lift full paragraphs out of a book, out of Moby Dick, and put it in my silly novel. I mean, Nobody wants that, but you know, that's where if you publish it, you own it. And you have to remember that. I have no
That is
intention
for
of
sure.
I have no intention of publishing this.
Okay, well, we are out of time. It's been a pretty quick hour. Joe, thank you so very much for sharing your insights with us today. Um, I know that there's a lot that I can use AI for in my personal life, and I hope you all can too. There's a lot that we already do use it for, so this is just the next step, I think. AI is definitely an ever-changing topic. As you highlighted, the tools and capabilities are constantly evolving. And it's exciting and maybe a little scary to think about how much more is possible just over the horizon. We really appreciate your time and expertise today. Thank you so much, Joe, for a fantastic session. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I appreciate everyone for coming.
Thank you so much. Before we move on, if a question wasn't answered, Joe, is it okay if we
Please.
send an email?
Yeah.
Okay, folks,
I
if you
get
want
calls
to,
and email every day from students, so glad to have you.
okay, Joe's email and information is right up here on the screen. So if your question wasn't answered, please do send him an email. Send it through to us. We can also forward on an email. And then very last thing, I would like to send you guys our survey here. Trisha's going to put the link into the chat right now of our survey. So if you can please take a minute to fill that out. Just 4 or 5 questions, I think, and we'd really appreciate your insight. And then last, we are going to give you some information on our next virtual training series presentation. Discovered what accessibility really means and why it matters. Learn how inclusive workplaces boost morale, productivity, and your brand. Plus, you'll get practical tips on respectful communication. Join us and take the next step towards true accessibility. Joe, thank you so much. I really enjoyed this. I'm so sorry that the Titanic thing didn't work out.
Aaron, this is great. The Titanic sank.
The
You should have
Titanic sank.
understood that.
It sank this time too, didn't it?
That's all right. Thank you very much. Anything I can do to help, let me know.
All right. We appreciate you, Joe. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye-bye.